So it's all to play for still.
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to For the Love of Paul McGrath podcast. And this is one I'm absolutely delighted to do. It's a transfer link that people alerted to me to last night. I think it's a pretty spurious one, to be honest with you, but I do want to talk about it because this guy is. It's no secret. For the last 3 years, I've been banging on about Nathan Collins. Obviously, being Irish, out of some in-depth information about him coming up through the youth structure at Ireland. And this guy comes from an absolutely stellar pedigree of a footballing family here within Ireland. Uncles and father both played in the UK to a decent level. And Nathan Collins is going on to keep up the family tradition and to play professional football. Nathan Collins, look, I'm just going to pin my colours to the mast. I'm extremely biased. I love this kid. I loved him from when he back as far as when I saw him play for Ireland under 17s, under 18s, under 19s, 20s, 21s, all the way through from watching him play as a young youth international for Ireland. This guy has just stood out as being head and shoulders, being a man amongst boys, and just being just a really good, solid, intelligent. I'm going to use the word kid because that's what he was at the time, and that's what really drew me to him. And for Villa to be linked with Nathan Collins, if anybody's followed my Twitter feed for the last 2 years, you'll know every time I get an opportunity to praise Nathan Collins, I do, because he can just do bloody everything. He really can. And we're going to take a look at him now in a moment with regards to statistics. And he's very much a study with regards to, you have to just watch him play. You have to watch him play. The stats for any Burnley defender, as we mentioned with James Tarkowski, and James Tarkowski is probably a small bit of a different prospect considering he's 29. He's played in that structure for an awful long period of time. But Nathan Collins is 21 and he's learning his way within the game. But my God, has he excelled as a 21-year-old. Before we look at the statistics, it's always baffled me how he wasn't in the Irish team earlier than he got in there, because he's only recently made his mark with the Irish team. You've all seen that goal against Ukraine. This guy has that in his locker. He's been played out in the right as a right back. He's played as a right wing back for Stoke. He's been played in the centre half position. He's just got really, really great feet. He's a really good player. He's a really intelligent player. He's as brave as a lion. You know, we talk about you talk about, for all the good and the bad that Tyrone Mings does, you can never say that Tyrone Mings isn't brave, that he's not going to throw himself in front of something. Nathan Collins is a level above that with bravery. I'm quite confident in saying that. It's just it's crazy the amount of the amount of blocks this guy gets in and the amount of effort he puts in when he's on the field. So Nathan Collins, definitely massive, huge favourite of mine, and I'm delighted to be doing this podcast. And should he sign for Aston Villa, I would be absolutely ecstatic, because this is somebody that I've really looked at and I've really watched. I've followed his career through from the youth days of playing for Ireland all the way through to where he is now with Burnley. And as I say, it's thrilling to have a link to him. So let's take a little look at some of the statistics, and very much a player that is like, we're going to look at the stats here. He's a victim of, I suppose, of what he's been asked to do with Burnley, because I've seen him do different things when watching games. And when I do bring up these stats, I know a lot of people, well, I won't say a lot of people, some people will criticize me and they'll say, oh, you're just looking at stats and you don't know what the player actually is like. But no, that's not what it is. These scouting series that I do, another series that I do with regards to transfer links, you watch the player as well. And with Nathan Collins, I didn't need to sit down and watch 7 or 8. I didn't need to sit down and watch 7 or 8 other games of his, because I've watched him since he was like 16, 17 years of age. I know exactly what he can do, and I know what he's done for Stoke. I know he's done for Burnley. And when we look at things, I'm going to start off here with the pass attempts. I'm going to completely ignore an awful lot of his passing attempts. And the reason being is because these are taken from the last 365 days. And it's something that, he obviously, we can see it within the Burnley team. The centre halves are not tasked with passing. So I'm going to throw those completely out with regards to this. And I'm okay with doing that. It's not from blind bias. It's because I know that this guy can pass the ball when he gets the ball at his feet. He did it at Stoke in a right back position. He even played at right wing back guys. 6'3.5", played at right wing back for a period of time at Stoke in the Championship as well. And you can see there by his heat map, he does favour the right hand side. And when we look at where Aston Villa are probably going to look for reinforcements within the centre half position, maybe it would be the right sided centre back that would be someone that we would be looking to come in and maybe take over a load, maybe from an Ezri Konsa, who won't be back in time for the start of the season. Nathan Collins being 21, it gives him time to grow and to stay within the structure and be that succession plan to maybe a Tyrone Mings, to maybe a Diego Carlos, or even just specifically towards an Ezri Konsa if he outgrows him with regards to his performance. But looking at his defensive statistics, we can see here, like tackles per 90 minutes, 1.62 tackles per 90 minutes, puts him in there right in the middle of the pack. Tackles won. And what I mean by his bravery is that when he goes for a tackle, he wins the tackle more often than not. You can see there with his pressure rate is middle of the pack as well. We don't really want our centre halves doing a lot of pressuring. Pressure should come further out the field. That's something I've always been upfront and honest with. And when we look at his blocks, his passes blocked, his actual blocks himself, they just far eclipse anybody that we have on this team already. And I haven't included Diego Carlos here on the bullseye map beside him there to the right hand side, but I should do. I have his stats included. I have Diego Carlos' stats included later on, and we will be able to take a look at that, to how potentially a Nathan Collins and a Diego Carlos could match as a yin and yang, one being a complete and utter ball defender and the other one being more of a ball playing centre half, while also being as tough as nails as we know Diego Carlos is. Just like, I can't stress enough that when you watch Nathan Collins, you can see an intelligence on the ball. You can see that he knows how to use the ball at his feet. He can be a ball playing centre half for absolute sure. No doubt in my mind that he can be a ball playing centre half. The statistics that we look at here with his pass completion rates and his pass attempts are very much so because at Burnley he was tasked with playing the ball forward quickly, which is obviously going to be a long ball, which is going to be 50-50 at best, even for a team like Burnley, who have Jay Rodriguez up front and have an Ashley Barnes up front there to try and win those balls and get in towards those second balls. Also with Wout Weghorst as well that they brought in, Matthijs Vidra, all these guys that they would have been there. They would have been big, strapping, strong, ball-winning centre forwards. So, and when the ball goes in the air, it's going to be 50-50 at best, when it does go into the air. So looking at pass completion statistics and things, based on the fact that he only played 19 games and 18 of those were starts last season, I'm going to throw those out as not a good sample set. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I've seen him play the ball on the ground. I know he absolutely can do that. So when we look at statistics and we look at scouting, and I'm sure that people will be screaming at this going, but sometimes you castigate players for the statistics. Yes, I do, because the sample set is bigger, and because when you look at them over a course of games this year, the year previously, and the year previous before that, or you look over a couple of games, you notice that the stats actually match what you see with your eyes. In this instance here, based on what Nathan Collins has done with Burnley, the stats don't match what I've seen in my eyes for the last 4 to 5 years when I've been watching this guy play at youth level and all the way up. So that is important. It's always important to marry the numbers with your eyes as well and what you do see on the field. And that's really important. But the intelligence that he has from a positional point of view, the ability and the athleticism he has to be able to get out to that right-hand side is phenomenal. You watch him; he's a specimen from the point of view of he looks really athletic. He doesn't look gangly. He's able to turn. He doesn't get caught flat-footed when he tries to tackle players. And really, I do mean this when I say it, that I think this guy, I said it about 3 years ago, he was linked with Man United. I said, yeah, if he goes to Man United, he will start for Manchester United before his 21st birthday. And I genuinely believe that no matter who he was with in the Premier League, just happened to be Burnley, he started for them before his 21st birthday. And because this guy is like, it's the difference, I suppose, really, when we look at the centre halves that we have in our youth academy coming up. They're young, they're 18, 19, 20. This guy was the same, but this guy I thought could have been elevated a bit further because of his physical ability, also his technical ability, and just the intangible of the fact that he has a head on his shoulders. He's a really intelligent player as well. So I'm absolutely ecstatic with regards to Nathan Collins. And when we look at him there on the bullseye map to the right hand side there, we can see him in comparison to Tyrone Mings and to Ezri Konsa, and he outperforms them in some certain aspects of the game there. Specifically with regards to the blocks. So we can see his blocks actually even went off the scale in my in my from the numbers that I had here, I actually had to put his blocks off the scale here because he'd outperformed that. That just shows the bravery of the guy. But let's look at a more in-depth analysis here as to where he stacks up with regards to the likes of Tyrone Mings there. We can see tackles more, wins more tackles than Tyrone Mings. Yes, the dribblers, the amount of dribblers tackled and the amount of times he's been dribbled past is higher and lower respectively than Tyrone Mings in that instance, but he pressures more. He's a better pressure success rate. He's a better block rate than Tyrone Mings. And that's something that I didn't think I would see when I looked at the numbers, considering that Tyrone Mings loves to block the ball and is he likes to get in the way of the ball. And that is a skill I think that is needed within the Premier League too. Not like once again with the passing statistics and stuff like that, his pass attempts are down, his pass completions are down in that aspect too. But that's definitely something that I think that we would see him grow if he does come to Aston Villa, and once he's trusted to do that, I think he would be able to do that within the Premier League. Likewise with Ezri Konsa, we can see here on the right hand side, on the left hand side, that we've got Nathan Collins, who has a better tackle rate per 90, better tackles won rate per 90, better pressures rate than Ezri Konsa, better blocks, better passes blocked, better interceptions, better at aerial duels than Ezri Konsa. So the pure defending part of the game, he does come out better than Ezri Konsa as well. And lastly, we look at him in comparison with Diego Carlos. Once again, better tackle rate per 90, better tackles won rate per 90. Has a worse percentage of tacklers dribbled, he's been dribbled past more, better at pressures is Nathan Collins than Diego Carlos, has a higher amount of them, but his success rate of those pressures is worse than Diego Carlos, which means the yin and the yang, as I mentioned here, between the two of these guys fits in really well. You've got somebody who's really good at or has a good track record of tackling dribblers and not being dribbled past in Diego Carlos. You've got somebody who's really good at tackling out in the open in Nathan Collins. You've got somebody who's got a really high pressure rate in Nathan Collins, and you've somebody who's got a really high pressure success rate in Diego Carlos. So the yin and the yang of those two guys playing at a left centre half and a right centre half is really exciting. We look at there that Nathan Collins throws himself in front of the ball as well from a blocking point of view. Once again, you can't have both centre halves just firing themselves blindly and being on the ground and throwing themselves at blocks. You know, having one that is supremely comfortable at it and at a high level, and one that isn't, is fantastic too. And likewise with the aerial abilities, they both come in pretty similar there as well. And lastly, as we said here, Diego Carlos by far and away a more passing centre half than Nathan Collins is based on the numbers that we have here. So all in all, I know this is a really quick one. I'm just on a small break in work at the moment, but this is a really quick one. We'll be back to discuss this in more detail with regards to Nathan Collins. Absolutely thrilled with this. I can't overstate how much I've been so enthused about this guy since I very first saw him. As I say, he comes from a great pedigree. Look him up. His father, his uncle both played professional football in the UK and played at a very, very high level back in the 80s as well. And this guy's continuing on the family tradition and the family trade of playing professional football. And I would be delighted to see him in the correct claret and blue of Aston Villa. So that's going to do it for Nathan Collins for today, guys. Sorry, it's a short one. I would have loved to have spoken about this guy for an hour or 2 hours. But you know, give me a shout, pop a comment here if you have any more questions about him. I will be back more to talk about him. Please give this a thumbs up if you do like it, and please subscribe to the channel also if this is the content that you guys would like. Before I do go, I see there's a lot of comments here as well. David Miller asks, will you rename the podcast if we sign him? I won't rename the podcast if we sign him. He's going to need to be able to play without the use of both arms against one of the best teams in the world in a World Cup series before I do that, because Paul McGrath's game against Italy in 1994 was just so good that I couldn't rename the podcast just yet. Am I his agent? Asked David Styles. No, I am not his agent. Not yet anyway, but I will talk to anybody in a glowing reference about Nathan Collins, because I do think that highly of him. Christopher says, damn Neil, your commitment to the transfer season unreal. Thank you so much. It's my favorite time of the year. Call me a child if you want. I'm the biggest 37-year-old child you'll ever find when it comes to the transfer market, because I just love looking at players and finding out if there's any market inefficiencies, looking at their tape on Y-Scout, and then also looking at their numbers here. And I know some of these numbers, I actually did spot a slight little error in the bullseye map I had on the previous slide that I have and I will rectify that in future slides. But yes, as I say, I love this. I love looking into the numbers and seeing if they marry up. David Style says, pretty sure Neil didn't do any research to get these numbers. He knew them off the top of his head. I didn't know them, as I say, because some of them were a small bit surprising to me, specifically the amount of pass attempts and the completion rate that he had, because I would have expected that to be higher based on what I've seen from him before. So looking at the numbers was a bit of a surprise, but there is context behind numbers also. Mark Mountford says, we need our centre halves to pose a threat in the opposition's box too. It's been a big failing this year. Well, 6'3.5" and a head like a lump of granite. I think this guy is this guy will be able to do the business in the opposition's box, and he hasn't even finished filling out yet, I think. So he's got a bit more to go as well from that point of view. So guys, thanks so much for the comments. Please like this. Please give it a thumbs up. I'm going to be sharing a post on Twitter. This is a surprise one because I just got a break on work. I'm going to be sharing this on Twitter. If you could share the hell out of that on Twitter as well, I'd like everybody to see this Nathan Collins podcast. But until next time, thanks very much. Stay safe, and all that's left to say is up the Villa.